So this is being called a breakthrough, breakout year for you. What does that feel like, and is that how you would describe it?
I mean, it feels amazing. It definitely is a very remarkable year. I mean, certain things this year have happened that I never would have believed would happen. But at the same time, you know, when you think about that and you're just kind of internalizing that, I think that every single year, even when I was making $10,000 a year, as Awkwafina, it was the best year of my life. So just to be able to do what I'm doing is the best year. I hope it's not the last best year, but yeah, I mean, it's a great year. Great year.
When you say things happened this year that you never would have imagined, give me an example of what blew your mind.
First of all, 2 back-to-back premieres with 2 casts that I'm absolutely in love with. And, you know, seeing the support for Crazy Rich Asians roll out, and now, you know, with award seasons, the fact that we got nominated is incredible. So it's more of a group kind of kind of breakthrough-ness. You know, I feel like I'm sharing my happiness with a lot of other people.
So you have these 2 big films, kind of back to back, right?
Yeah.
And Saturday Night Live.
Oh, and yes, and Saturday Night Live.
You forgot about that.
No, I didn't forget. No, that was a big one. That was obviously proof that I still can't believe that happened. Yeah.
So, and you said that you were surprised, is the right word, about the response to Crazy Rich Asians?
Yeah, I mean, I think for any movie that you work on, you always hope for the best, but you never know. I think as a cast, we knew that we were doing something bigger than ourselves out there. We always knew, but we didn't know how that would translate. And, you know, there was, you know, whether you wanted to feel it or not, there was a level of pressure riding on us. You know, we wanted to show that the market for these kinds of films existed, and they do. So that was incredible. Yeah.
I read somewhere that you said you saw people who were coming out who were crying and who the film impacted people in a whole host of ways.
Oh yeah.
What was the most surprising to you about how it impacted people?
I think one moment, it was, whether it was a surprise or kind of validating something that I already predicted, I would see these kids come out and they were crying, you know, tears of joy. And I remember going up to one of them at one of the screenings and being like, "Oh man, why are you crying?" And she was like, "I don't know why I'm crying. Like, I don't know." And I came to find that feeling that I don't know is the privilege of representation. It's something that, you know, a lot of people in this country take for granted. But for the people that didn't have it, they don't even know that they were lacking it. And when they find it, it matters to them and it impacts them. And for me, like, I was in the movie, but I'm also this Asian American girl who I think has always been searching for representation like that. I got it from Margaret Cho and Lucy Liu as a kid, but now it's like it's in such a bigger way for the next generation.
Do you feel like you're in your work carrying that, in addition to wanting to be accepted as an actress, as a comedian, as a multifaceted, multi-hyphenated performer, but also as an Asian American?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I think the way that I represent my community, doing whatever I do, the multi-hyphenate world, you know, I do it for them. And I don't think a lot of other actors, you know, maybe white actors can say that they have to represent for their community, but for people of color, we do. And it's a responsibility that I take very, very seriously. So, yeah, I mean, feeling accepted, all that, I think that I'm coming into the industry at a time where, you know, voices like mine are being accepted. And so I feel very spoiled. It's when I think about how hard it must have been before this time for other Asian actors out there.
When you say you take the responsibility of representing your community seriously, what does that mean exactly? Do you go in and look at every role or every opportunity that comes to you and step back and say, how will this play out in my community?
Yes.
You do?
100%, yes. Every role that I look at, every script that I look at, every character, and this has happened even before, you know, I was in movies. I would go into auditions, you know, there would be, this happened very rarely, but it did happen, where they would just switch up, someone would come in and say, we need an accent. And I don't really agree with that. I think that there are certain scenarios where an accent is necessary for the performance, but then there are scenarios where it's just adding to this kind of, a very backwards view of how we're displayed in media, because the way that we're portrayed in media directly affects how we're treated in the real world. And even with the success of Crazy Rich Asians, I felt that, I think that Asians are we're not really like the butt end of the joke anymore. I think that people are considering us in a more serious way. Yeah.
And that's important to you as you go through your life,
Sure.
to change those stereotypes.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
And do you feel you're a part of doing that?
I mean, that goes back to representation. Everything that I do, whether it's bad or it's good, will impact my community. And even if I didn't want to represent them, I've said this before, like my dying breath could be, I didn't want to represent them, and I'll still be representing them in that moment. It's gonna happen. And so when knowing that, everything good that you do, it will help them as a community. And also for me, it's easy because everything about me, I'm a walking anti-stereotype. I'm horrible at math, passed my driver's test on the first go. Everything that all of the myths that they want to put out there about Asian people, me just being here, it eliminates them.
So let me talk a little bit about this kind of your name.
Okay.
And I'm fascinated with this. So your name is actually Nora.
Yes.
And you developed Awkwafina as really an alternate persona to, if I understand it correctly, the shy girl that Nora is or was.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's what she became. I think in the beginning it was just an alternate name. I started doing music when I was very young, so that was kind of my music name. But I think as I started to perform and I started to get out there a little bit in the industry, that's when I noticed the duality. Awkwafina induces the panic attacks and Nora takes them. Nora is an introvert who is constantly thinking and incredibly neurotic and anxious. And Awkwafina is the girl that never had to deal with the neuroses of adulthood. She is just the girl that doesn't care. And so I need her as a shield to go and perform in front of a group of hecklers.
So how do you balance both? Because, for so many particularly young girls, and I'm not just talking Asian American girls, but just young girls, struggling with confidence, struggling with, who they are going out in the world, whether it's on social media or performing or whatever. Would you advise them to develop an alternate persona that might help them?
Yeah, I think for some, if you can fool yourself to say that you are two different people, it'll help in that way. And I think that every girl is going to deal with confidence issues, but at the same time, if you follow one side of the alter ego, you're just full confidence, no, like not aware of any consequence, just out there being an idiot. And then the second one is someone who pulls you back and has humility. And I think that confidence issues, it exists within us, but it will help us as well. It'll help us not be an idiot. It'll help us think before we do. And but I think it is important to have both. Yeah.
So that girl in Crazy Rich Asians, she seems to have no confidence issues to me. She seems the opposite of shy and introverted.
Yes.
So do you walk on that set and become Awkwafina? She's completely, and then you look at what she's doing in that movie and go whoa. Yeah.
Well, that definitely happened on that movie.
It did?
Because there's a little bit of both. I can't say that Nora has no part in anything that Awkwafina does. At the end of the day, they're both coming from me. Yeah. But for that specific performance, I was a pretty new actor. John Chu and Nina Jacobson at the time, God bless them, they had never seen me in anything. So I think John was particularly nervous about how Picklin would translate, and I didn't even know what I was doing. I had no idea. And so when I watched it back, I was like, Oh, okay, that's what she is. So everything I do, she's always born then and there. There's no plan. I think I just black out.
But how does that work? Because I read that the director said you will either make this film or you will break this film.
Exactly.
You'll either make it a disaster,
yeah,
or you will give it its energy.
Yeah, that's what he said. That's what he said.
So how do you manage that? You walk in with going, I'm going to make or break this film, and there's really no description for this character.
No.
I've got to ad-lib her, and how do you do that?
I have no idea. I mean, I think that I knew what Pigland was supposed to be, and I also knew what I could lend, and we went off book a lot. And I think it was that trust that John had in me. That, even though he did say those things, like, he did trust me in a way that, like, not a lot of directors, I think, would trust, like, a kind of a newbie actor. But I think it was that trust that allowed me to go. Every comedian, every performer is looking for validation. Once you have that first laugh, you're good. You're golden. You can do whatever you want. If you don't hear a laugh, you don't have that trust, then I think that stilts a performance.
Where does that come from, that desire for validation? And how do you know? Do you feel like this year you got it?
The validation, I mean, if one person laughs at Pigland, then I'm okay. That's all it is. And it must stem from when I was a child. I lost my mom at a very young age. I developed humor as kind of this mechanism because I didn't like dealing with a crying adult. I liked to make people laugh. I had a very intense desire to make people laugh from as early as 4 years old. So I think that every comedian, they always have some kind of something that happens to them, some kind of adversity. And I think it also comes down to insecurity. We need validation. We need people's laughter so bad. It's the fuel.
So you just said something that's interesting to me. You said that you developed laughter at a very early age to combat adults crying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So was that something you saw, that when your mom passed away, you saw the adults in your home crying?
Yes.
And you didn't want to cry? You didn't want them to cry?
Yeah, I mean, it's awkward for a child to be holding an adult who's crying. And I remember feeling that very intensely. And how it put me, that's why I learned embarrassment at such a young age. A 4-year-old's not supposed to feel embarrassed all the time. And that's kind of where it had me. And I didn't want to be the source of people's sorrow. I didn't want people to see me and think, this horrible thing just happened to this child, I wanted people around me to laugh. And I think what came of that was a spunkiness in me that didn't really exist in a lot of kids, that at least my grandma told me. So that's why, like, I'm very close to my grandma. She always nurtured the spunkiness. Any time that I felt weird or that I was being, I was like this class clown or whatever, she always thought that's what's going to make you special. That's what's going to do it for you. She always believed in it.
So she built up that spunky little girl.
Yeah. She never reprimanded it. No joke was too dirty ever for my grandma. She always loved it.
But you remember consciously feeling, gosh, everybody around here is sad.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be the person that people look at and go, poor her.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly it.
At 4?
At 4, yeah.
And that carried through till now?
Well, yeah, at age 5, I remember a very, very distinct memory. I had just like a bunch of adults, and I was doing impressions of, I really hate to say it, but I think I was doing impressions of like Monica Lewinsky and the Bill, or maybe it was before that.
Something in the news.
When I was a child, I was doing an impression of some current event, and everyone around me was rolling, and I was like, "What am I doing?" That's so, So it was just, I just remember feeling so much joy from that, a lot of joy.
Is that what brings you joy, to watch people laugh
Yeah.
at what you're doing?
That's what I love. I mean, there's a downside to that too, because when you're trying to be serious, they're still laughing,
Does that feel like a lot of pressure, though, that every time you come in the room, the 4-year-old is coming in the room and going,
I gotta turn it on?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, there is pressure, but that's what I do, I had to learn music. I had to learn producing music. I had to learn singing. I had to learn everything. Comedy, I never had to learn it. It's just something that I've never had to try really hard, practice, but everything else in my life I had to learn. Yeah.
So I read in this, because you did this video that went viral, and I read that it's about women's private parts,
Yeah.
right? And you were working in a PR agency, and
Yeah.
I read that you said it was the worst day of my life because you walked in and they fired you, and you said you can't be out doing videos about women's private parts and expressing your creativity and have a 401k job.
Exactly.
Which I loved.
It's true.
And tell me about that day, that moment when you realized you're not the 401k girl.
I mean, I always knew I was not a 401k girl. Doesn't mean I still tried for it. You know, I think I had two lives at that point. I had a life where I felt, you know, in a collective mentality. You have to deal with the political culture of an office. You have to, you know, you have to follow that track. And then this other self that really celebrated something original within me that I knew that I only had, and this was me. And the threat of that being taken away, to then never have it again, I just, it didn't sit well with me. So yes, getting fired was one of the most disgraceful days of my life. I'm still mad about it. I'm like, I still have zero closure, still feel like I messed up. But at the same time, you know, like that was a sacrifice I had to make. And, you know, when I tell people, I speak at a lot of colleges, nothing big will happen in your life unless there's a major loss, unless there's a major risk. And so that was my loss. I knew that I could never walk into a job interview ever again. And it was a hard day. It still is a hard day.
Why is it still a hard day?
Because I guess I felt like I wasn't that good at it, you know, and that I got caught doing something that maybe wasn't that good. But I don't know, you know, whenever you get fired, that always sucks, right?
Yeah, I've been fired. It sucks. Yeah, it sucks. Yeah,
I mean, it sucks a little bit.
It also
yeah.
freed you in a way, right? Didn't it free you?
It did, because at that point I had nothing to lose, and I had a very important choice: is go on to monster.com and look for jobs, or see if this could work, because no other point in your life will you have the chance to do this now. You pick one road, you pick the other road. That's it. And so I worked a couple like odd jobs here and there. Worked at a bodega, vegan bodega. Worked at a Japanese restaurant. So I you know, and I waited until, and it grew very, very slowly, the video. But then, you know, one day I got offered a show, and I said, you know, I don't have to do this anymore. I'm gonna go full Awkwafina.
I'm gonna go full Awkwafina.
Full Awkwafina, yeah.
Is that hard, like in your regular life, that people want to call you somebody that's not your name, and that you're actually trying to, maybe you don't need her anymore?
That's a really good question. I think I'll always need her. I mean, her name is pretty stupid, but I'll always need her. Everyone I know in my life calls me Nora, except for, you know, maybe the production assistant that leads me is like, oh, Awkwafina. Oh, that's like the only person that'll call me Awkwafina. But I think that I'll always need her, and even when in a name sense she doesn't exist, she'll still be there. She'll be inside there somewhere.
And that name comes from the water and awkward, correct? Is that correct?
I guess so. I mean, I always loved when brands feminize things, and it was Awkwafina, and I'm definitely very awkward. So Italian people love it. A couple of Italians came to me and they were like, "Thank you for naming yourself that. It's an Italian name." And then they break it down.
So let me ask you. This year we talked about your back-to-back films, and then you have Saturday Night Live, and that's being hailed as like a breakthrough moment, not just in your own career, but for an Asian American woman.
Yes.
Pressure. What did it feel like? Did it feel like, oh, good for me, I got this?
Saturday Night Live?
Yeah.
Man, I couldn't believe it. I was actually on the plane, and I got a text from my publicist and was like, I have to tell you something, but I can't tell you over text. And I was like, oh my God. I thought like a tape released or something, like I don't know. I didn't know what it was. I was like, oh my God, I was freaking out. And I landed and got on the phone, and he was like, you're hosting SNL. And I was like, what?